phrase Becha Kelala, and the curse. And we touched on the word Kelala earlier, and we considered that this word was in essence a slighting of the truth, which we might consider a condition of being incomplete. If we don't have the full truth, we are not complete. Okay? When we consider evil, we might think of it as an erroneous view of good, like what the Rebbe said. This leads us to slight or to only see one side of the truth. So in a sense, we might consider that this is a false sense of security. We are incomplete. We're only seeing things from one point of view. And Yahshua had a story that he gave, and it's found at Luke 12:16 through 21. He said, then he used this illustration. He said, and this is Joshua speaking, a rich man had land that produced good crops. He thought, what should I do? I don't have enough room to store up my crops. He said, I know what I'll do. I'll tear down my barns and I'll build bigger ones so that I can store all my grain and goods in them. Then I'll say to myself, you stored up a lot of good things for the years to come. Take life easy, eat, drink, and enjoy yourself. But Elohim said, you fool, I will demand your life tonight. Now who will get what you've accumulated? That is how it is when a person has material riches but is not rich in his relationship with Yahweh Elohim. We have half the truth. We're halfway. We're not totally. And we'll talk about that in just a second. What would have happened if the man sought direction from Elohim? Could the excess have been given to help the poor of the community? He had a good idea and good intentions, but they were not complete without taking Elohim or his neighbor into account. We are to love Elohim and then love our neighbor as we love ourselves. We cease our consideration of Yahweh Elohim and our neighbor when we only consider our carnal impulses. What did the woman see in the tree, or the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil? What did the woman see in the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil? A way to knowledge outside of Elohim. Solomon says, Proverbs 1:7, the fear of Yahweh is the beginning of knowledge, but the foolish despise wisdom and discipline. This is what happens when we bring the balance of the verse into consideration, which says, if you will not hearken unto the commandments of Yahweh Elohecha, but turn aside out of the way, which I command you this day to go after other Elohim, which you have not known. So when we slight the commandments of Yahweh Elohim, we turn aside from the path that we are commanded to seek, or that we should seek in faith out of love and obedience. In this we might ask, is this a violation of our free will? So if we consider our previous statement that it is within the commandments that we find means of becoming complete, and we've talked about becoming complete in our previous studies, that we have to be not just physically complete, like the guy wanted to build the barns and store all his grains because he was thinking only one side. We have to be physically complete, but we also have to be spiritually complete. If we think about that, then we must say no, it doesn't violate our free will. We should want to be a complete being if we are to know and love Yahweh our Elohim and ourselves as we are commanded to do in Torah. Only in this way can we love our neighbor effectively. If we thus choose to turn aside out of the way which I command you this day in our lifetime, today, yesterday, and tomorrow, then we automatically go after other Elohim. Everybody catch that? If we choose to turn aside out of the way which Elohim has commanded us to go, then we automatically go after other Elohim. Because if the commandments say what? I am Yahweh Elohim. You shall have no others. But we say, I don't want to listen to what you're telling me. I don't want to follow your commandments. I'm going to go this other way because I've eaten from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. I know better. Then who's Elohim at this point? I am. Okay? We automatically go after Elohim. So are these truly other Elohim which you have not known? We can say that we know what we're doing. We know when we transgress, even if we hide it from the world. We can say that we know what we're doing, and we know when we transgress, even if we hide it from the world. We can make it a secret from everybody. But like we said earlier, Elohim knows what we're doing. The word for have not known is yedatem, from the root yeda, that doesn't necessarily mean to know as much as it means, here we go again, to be aware, to perceive, to discern, and then to learn and to find out. So this can pose a question to us. Do we stray from Elohim to seek things beyond his instruction? Do we stray from Elohim to seek things beyond his instruction? And this can kind of start to put off bells and whistles. Why do we do this? So we go to Bereshit 3:5 to find out what the serpent had to say about it. And then we'll go to Bereshit 3:6 to see what the woman thought about it. Bereshit 3:5 says, for Elohim, this is the serpent speaking, by the way, for Elohim does know that in the day you eat of it, then your eyes shall be opened, and you shall be as Elohim, knowing good and evil. This is a deception from the Satan. Then what does the woman think? And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was a delight to the eyes, and the tree was to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof, and she did eat, and she gave also to her husband with her, and he did eat. Okay? What are we looking for in instruction beyond the instruction of what our Elohim tells us about seeking him to live and about loving our neighbor as ourselves? From our Torah studies, we've learned that all of the instruction given by Yahweh, our Elohim, is given for our benefit, well-being, and best interest. There is nothing harsh or that puts chains on us in his Torah. So this study teaches us, most importantly, to seek Elohim through his word, to live, and not to seek out our lives based on our own understanding. This applies to everything. We have the big decision. We have this big decision to make it work. We have a big decision at home, in a relationship, or any other time we have something that we have to think about or a decision to be made. We must seek the wisdom that comes from above, as opposed to jumping right into other Elohim which you have not known. In life there will be blessings and curses. We will stray off the path and then back on. The choice is ours as to which mountain we choose to seek Elohim from. And I really wasn't going to do anything with verse 29, but verse 29 says, and it shall come to pass when Yahweh Elohecha shall bring you into the land where you are going to possess it, that you shall set the blessings upon Mount Gerizim and the curse upon Mount Ebal. Gerizim means to cut off. And we say, okay, well, what does that have to do? Why am I putting blessings on something that means to cut off? The root of Gerizim means a portion, and the idea is to cut off a portion, to distribute a portion. This is what makes it special. When we reside here on this mountain and keep the Torah, the instruction of Yahweh Elohim, we receive our portion in the kingdom of heaven, or in his kingdom. This is our blessing. Ebal means a bare mountain, and this is our portion for not keeping Torah, that we receive nothing other than to hear, depart from me, you workers of iniquity, for I never knew you. This is the curse. So the question that we end up with in the end is, where do you stand? Or we should say, what mount do you stand on? And this is, there's a whole bunch of different commentaries on this Torah portion. But as I was going through this Torah portion, this started to just jump out at me. And I hope that this is helpful to somebody as far as thinking about what direction to take or how to view the commandments. We get a lot of arguments, not in this room, but back and forth in other places. Well, the dietary laws are this, and you keep the Torah for that, and you keep the Torah. We understand that Yahshua said, until heaven and earth pass away, not one jot or one tittle will change. And anybody who teaches that they have will be called less in the kingdom of heaven. Those who teach that they're still here will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. But the point of emphasis are that a lot of these commandments seem to be irrelevant. What does it matter if we eat pork or not? It matters in that Torah says don't do it, and this is done to discipline us. It's really irrelevant, like we said earlier, and I want to just drive this point home, that it's irrelevant in building our relationship with our neighbor, to love our neighbor as ourselves. But it's huge in building our relationship with Elohim, and that we obey out of faith, and we're obedient out of faith. And that is what draws us closer to our Elohim. Any questions? Grooviness is achieved.
Don't you think that law was put in place for a reason, though?
What,
the commandment?
The commandment?
I mean, it's like, today's modern day science has caught up that pork is not as good for you as other meats.
Well, we've talked about it before, and yes, there's an absolute, perfectly good explanation as why he said, don't eat it, it's unclean for you. Because he loves his people, he's taking care of them. What happens when you feed raw pork or undercooked pork to 2.5 million people? Well, you're going to get a whole lot of sick people.
Absolutely.
And then you're going to have a whole lot of sick people that are leaking out of parts that we're not going to discuss in this room, that other people are stepping in, and before you know it, you have an epidemic in the camp. You have dysentery, you have all kinds of problems. The same thing with, we say something as irrelevant as rabbit. Why can't we eat rabbit? Because if you don't cook rabbit correctly, you have this little problem called tularemia, which is a very serious disease. Why, when we're going along the shore, we can't pick up the clams that are in the seashore? Why can't we scrape up the little shrimp or the crabs or whatever?
Yeah. I understand.
How many people are allergic to shellfish? So
yeah.
he gave it to us because he loves us and he wants to take care of us.
And he knows more about us than we do.
So why do we keep it today? It's totally
Right.
irrelevant. We keep it because he said so.
Okay.
Some
Because-
animals were created for food and some were not.
Yeah.
They're just that
Because,
simple.
Grandma, and this may sound terrible, but Grandma cut both ends off the ham to stick it in the oven. And the whole family's been doing it for the last 50 years, not knowing that she did that because it wouldn't fit into the oven if she didn't carve the ends off.
She had the best tasting ham ever.
Yeah.
We did it just like she
But
did.
focus of this is we have a choice.
Right.
But like we talked about Tuesday, and then I'll shut up, is that we can stay bound to the Levitical law and do it because we have to. Or we can step away from that, accept the blood of Yahshua, and say that I'm going to be bound to the priesthood of Melchizedek and do it out of faith because I want to. And now Rubinus has been achieved. All right, the camera's off. Jump in there.